Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Dustin Miller. I'm an Associate Director in Career Services for the School of Engineering and Applied Science. And today I have the pleasure of presenting the Career Fair Preparation Workshop to you all. So as you see on the line there, we're going to help you ace the event, whether it be virtual or in person. We're going to be going over both of those modalities as well. So like I said, my name is Dustin Miller. Really happy to be with you all. Thank you for joining. I appreciate you taking the time out of your day to help prepare yourself for the career fair and for career fair season in general. And there's good tips in here that go beyond the career fair too. So again, thank you for joining us. And hopefully you can learn from me. I can learn from you. And we can learn all from each other with any questions that you might have regarding the career fair preparation. So what are we going to cover today? So again, virtual and in-person career fairs, differences, there are some. Some things will remain the same, but we're going to cover the differences between the two. Action items. What can you do now to prepare for them coming up? And then also, what can you do, after as well? So we're going to talk about all of that. Employer research is going to be really important. Just like if you are researching for an interview or for a job, we have some tips and best practices that you'll be able to hopefully implement pretty quickly and immediately. And we have some different resources that we'll cover for you to be able to complete that employer research ahead of time so that you can have the best experience during the fair as possible. And then also some day of, so tips and tricks, right? We want to get the most out of this experience as possible. We have a tremendous opportunity with employers that are here to see you, right? So keep that in mind. They're really excited to be here to talk to Penn students and, hear what we have from our community to offer them. So keep that in mind. We're going to talk about how we can maximize your experience. And then, like I said, we'll have plenty of time for questions. So please, as you have questions, drop them in the chat. We'll get to them. If I do see them and I get to them while we're sharing, I'll try to answer as I go. But again, I do have designated time to answer questions that you all might have at the end. So with that being said, let's talk about the upcoming career fairs, starting with this Friday, February 2nd, right? So it's going to be an in-person fair. So this is a great opportunity for you to get out there. And there are going to be employers from, different types of industries. So this isn't something that's like uber specific. There are plenty of different people that you can come and talk to, which is going to be a great opportunity to practice. So, and like I said earlier, I work with engineering students who, more than likely are going to be gearing more towards that STEM career fair, right? But I told them, and this goes for anybody, even if there's not an employer that you're particularly wanting to talk to or excited to talk to at the spring and internship fair on Friday, which there are plenty to do so. But if nothing is of keen interest to you, you should still come to practice. This is an awesome chance to be able to talk about yourself, bring your resume, how you articulate what you're looking for in an internship or a full-time job, right? So this is a great way to maybe knock off some of the nerves and get out there. But like I said, there's also going to be a list of employers that you'll see who's coming. And we'll talk about that a little bit later, how you can see who is going to be coming to the fair. And like I said, we do have some really awesome employers coming. So regardless of, what you're searching for, I think everyone should get out there on Friday to get some practice in. And also, the real thing with opportunities to land full-time jobs and internships. And then we have our design career fairs. Both there's an in-person and virtual February 8th, February 13th with their respective times and modality. The STEM career fair on February 15th in person as well. And then we have the Penn Spring 2024 All Industry Career Fair, February 22nd, which is virtual. So you'll see there in the bottom right of the screen I have. You just log into your Handshake account, go to the events, and you can filter by the career fairs, sort by date, and it will put them in order there for you. So you want to make sure you're registering for the events. And then when you get to the career fair, there's going to be a line. And even if you register, we're just going to want you to check in. And don't worry, if you forgot to register or if you haven't registered yet, you still can. And even if you don't on the day of the fair, you can certainly still tap your pen card to be able to get all checked in. Okay. So this is a schedule. You'll be able to see that, like I said, on Handshake as well. Now, we talked about the career fair venues, both the traditional career fair and the virtual career fair. So there are going to be some differences between these things that we're going to talk about. The virtual career fair will allow for someone like that one-on-one time, just like you would have in person if you were at the table, right? But it's going to be over obviously a little bit of a different modality. So there are going to be two different types, that we're going to talk about today in particular. Now, for the career fair in person, when you're navigating this through Handshake, I mentioned earlier, after you select a fair, you're going to be able to see a list of all the employers that are going to be coming to the fair. So I chose the STEM career fair here, for example, when I clicked on that. And when you get there, you can check out the details, which will include like, the location, the time, all those good things. And then all employers. And then if you have selected already any employers that you're already following, you'll see that other tab up top there, which can be selected to see if anybody you're following is going to be attending this fair in particular. So you're going to want to, you can also favorite it, as you can see at the top, to get any up-to-date notifications. So I definitely recommend ahead of time going in and looking at what employer is going to be coming and maybe who you might want to be targeting. This can go into a little bit later when we talk about doing some of that employer research as well. So kind of a similar approach when you're navigating it for a virtual fair. Again, you're going to be able to see all of these things that are going to be out there for you. It's going to be up there as well for you to look through the details, the employers, and things of that nature. You'll see the description. Here's some of those details that I had mentioned a little bit earlier. And then to get the most out of the virtual career fair in particular, this is a link. And so when you're on Handshake, you'll be able to actually watch Handshake experts walk through tips on how to successfully attend a career fair. It's a great resource for people to look out for anybody who maybe hasn't done a virtual career fair before, or anybody that has, and it's just looking for a little bit of a refresher. I definitely would recommend checking this out if you are planning on attending a virtual career fair as well. Now, you can also tag the virtual career fairs. And again, we have a resource to be able to do that so that, there's a lot of different resources. So I mentioned a couple of the ones that they can walk you through, like what not to do, planning your virtual career fair outfit in 30 seconds or less, right? These are all different things that you think about just a tad differently than if you were in person. There's some slight differences, but nothing that you won't obviously be capable of accomplishing here too. Now, there are some perks of a virtual career fair, right? So you don't have all the lines or the major time constraints. You can schedule in advance through Handshake, right? Signing up for slots that employers have for you to be able to know when you're going to talk to an employer, as opposed to an in-person fair. You get there, maybe it's in between class, maybe it's after lunch. You're not sure what the lines look like. Do I have time to get there, right? So there are some advantages to be able to schedule your time to speak with an employer in advance. You can adequately prepare and research employers, right? Because you know who you're going to be meeting with and at what times. One-on-one discussions without distractions, like for those 10 minutes. So there is kind of that limited capacity, just you and the individual from the organization, getting a chance to discuss your background, interests, experiences, how they might align with the roles that they have. And then there's also the group info sessions with employers, which is more of a Q&A format with students. And there's unlimited capacity for that. It's primarily more of like an info session, like I said, for employers to share information about them, what kind of students they're looking for to fulfill their opportunities. But you don't have to manage any belongings or like bags or notebooks will you be bringing along with you. You're in your own confined, space. So if you feel like you're the type of person where that might be a good environment for you to thrive in, you can consider that. So just a couple of the perks. But we want to talk about what you need to do in advance of that as well. So you want to make sure, and at this point, registration is going to be open. So let's start to register for any fairs that you do have interest in and mark your calendar. You're going to want to make sure that you are updating your profile and making your profile visible to employers as well. Update the resume, create a shareable link, decide on a quiet professional space with strong internet to attend the fair. This one's really important too. So if those of you who have a roommate or have multiple roommates or are not quite sure if you have a space where you want to go, just have a conversation and communicate with them like, hey, I just want to let you know if I could have, a quiet environment. I have a meeting with an employer for, about 10 minutes, or I have a group session for 30 minutes at this time. And if something's not going to work out with the schedule, you want to look just for an alternative space so that you can kind of have no distractions. You want to limit those for your interactions with them. You want to select a professional outfit to wear for the fair. Some people like to get fully dressed anyway. There is stuff out there that talks about, being confident, right? If you feel like you want to be, fully dressed as if you were going to an in-person fair. You can also take the other approach, which a lot of people do, and they just get dressed with what's going to be in the Zoom camera for their interaction. So it's really up to you and whatever makes you feel the most comfortable. And then you want to, like I said, review and research that list of registered employers in advance. Now, the one-on-one registration. So you'll see here when you're looking at a company who's going to be there, you'll be able to see when these one-on-ones would be, and you're going to see available times for you to select. So again, don't double book yourself. Start to plan out your calendar. If you're going to be doing one of these virtual fairs, you want to make sure you have a chance to be able to give yourself a break, right? You might not want to go back to back, or if something happens to run late or run over, just make sure that you're giving yourself an opportunity here to get that break, get some water, go to the bathroom, take a breath, right, in between the sessions. That's all important stuff too. So this is how you want to select the company. The available time will show up then for you to be able to select. And then after the virtual fair, you can easily message, kind of keep that conversation going, right? So sometimes I'll hear students say, oh, like, do the career fairs work? And I say, absolutely. I say just a big part of that is the follow-up after. So whether that be virtual or in person, you want to make sure that you want to, thank them for their time, try to continue the conversation, hear about some other opportunities that they might have. Um, Again, there's a couple of tips here you see on the screen about what you can say to continue that conversation, something that you found, interesting, or maybe was new that you learned from the event or your conversation with the info that was shared. You can be excited. It's okay to be excited about the role or the prospect of working for that company. And then you can continue to maybe ask any questions you either didn't have the chance to or hadn't thought of at the time to be able to follow up. Now, researching employers also going to be very important ahead of time. So it's an important piece of taking full advantage of the career fair, whether it be virtual or in person. You want to review the list of companies, like I said, in advance to see if there are some things that you want to look at for who you might want to be speaking with. You want to kind of plan these things out strategically. Again, when it's in the virtual component, you're going to be able to have an understanding of when your certain times are. If you're in person, this might look a little bit different, as employers can be positioned at different, rooms in Houston Hall, and are all at different tables. So you want to plan this out and map it out accordingly. So the importance of the employer research now. So you want to consider things like the company culture, the mission, values. How does all this match with your interests and needs, right? What types of positions do they have? Is it in your desired industry or service? What competitors do they have? So if you show that you've done some of this research and you're prepared when you come to speak with them, and it sounds like you have a clue of what they've been up to, or maybe a recent project that they've done or an initiative they've had as a company, you come across as a compelling and interested applicant, right? As a candidate, a prospective employee. So these are all good things to consider when you're doing a little bit of employer research. You want to consider maybe reviewing recent press as well. So if there's anything been in the news, oh, hey, I saw in the New York Times that such and such, right? So it shows that you're just engaged with the content and that you're staying up to date with any latest trends with the company, which again I think looks really great and shows that you're engaged with them. And there's a lot of different ways that you can find this information. So obviously, Google and the internet is going to be important. We're going to talk about a couple of different tools. Obviously, some beyond the obvious here. So things like Handshake, organization websites, LinkedIn, Vault Guides, which if you're not familiar with, it's a resource that you have access to through the Penn Career Services website, which we'll talk about in a little bit. The Lippincott Library, Glassdoor, and that's just to name a few, really. So if you're on Handshake, you can see the employer pages, which will have either employers that you already follow, or if you're trying to discover more employees or employers rather, you'll be able to see their pages, and you can see this job tab that's at the top with the red arrow pointing there. And you're going to be able to see anything that they've listed there as an opportunity for you. This is a good reason to follow employers that you're interested in, because you'll be able to quickly see any new jobs or things that they've posted. So that way, when you come to the fair or you have your conversation on the virtual fair, hey, I saw that you had posted such and such job on Handshake. I'm really interested in that. And you can really start your conversation there. So it's a good idea to look at these things ahead of time with anybody that you might be speaking with. Additionally, you can hear from people and what their experience might have been, right? Like, so you can get an inside scoop as to what the process might have been like for an interview. That's a question I get a lot from students is, well, what does the process look like? Or how many rounds of interviews? How long can I expect this process to take? Well, what better people to ask than those who have gone through it themselves? So if you do get a chance to see any of the reviews or the interview tabs there that have some feedback, it's a good idea for you to check those out as well. Again, this is part of your employer research. You have an idea and understanding of how they, kind of navigate this process. So as much information as you can gather ahead of time, the better, for sure. And same thing, you can do some peer searching on Handshake to see students who have worked there too. So again, if you want to speak to somebody who's kind of gone through the process, this is a good way to come into contact, one modality to do so. I know that a lot of students find value in speaking with others who have done the experience before. They want to know, what was it like? Keep in mind, it's okay to reach out to people, right? Everybody at some point was in a position that you might be in. And I'm sure if somebody reached out to you in the future about an experience that you've had or are going to have, you'd be more than willing to give them, just some tips, tricks, inside scoop, or just be honest about what your experience was like. That's nothing wrong with doing that at all. So peer searching is another function that you can certainly take advantage of. Again, you could do University of Pennsylvania only as well if you're trying to explore students. Sometimes students feel more comfortable starting with that piece of common ground. Now, I mentioned the vault guides earlier. So they are company guides, industry guides, job guides. You have access to all of these through Penn Career Services. It's company research information. It's really a wealth of information that's been curated and written by people who work for those industries. And these guys typically provide information about, the day in the life, the skills needed to enter the industry, and also common first round interview questions, which I think are some of the most advantageous things. So again, if you are just on the career services .upenn.edu, when you log in, you can search Vault. There's a magnifying glass at the top of our website to pull up our Vault guides, and then you'll be able to log in to get access to these. So again, that's Vault, and they're really helpful for you to kind of get, again, some research and preparation done before you're meeting with folks to discuss opportunities, or if you end up having interviews lined up too, you definitely could tap into these as well. The Lippincott Library is also another resource that you want to talk about. So you can go the extra mile to kind of prepare for that one-on-one session. There's high-level reports and information on employers here. When you visit the page, you can simply click on the business research guides, which you can, again, see by the red arrow that's indicated there on the Lippincott Library. And this can help you kind of get started. And you'll see the career information tab as well. Once you select the career information, it's going to take you to companies and industries, or maybe to workshops, LinkedIn learning courses, anything like that that can really, assist you in getting ready. You can also send a chat as well if you have any additional questions that can help you in being prepared for the career search, interview preparation, anything of that nature. So another great resource. You can ask for help, right? So it's okay to ask for help. I think a lot of times students feel like, oh, I have to do this on my own. It's okay. There are so many different resources and people here to help you at Penn. And so why not use them? And these are just a couple. Now, we're going to shift a little bit into the day of tips and tricks for the career fair, right? Again, maximizing your experience for either in-person or virtual events. For both types of fairs, 3 things employers want to know, right? So I'll give you a second to look at these. How can you contribute to the organization? Why do you want to work for them? And what are you going to be like as a coworker, right? So employers want to know these things. They want to know, what is it that you've done before that you're going to be able to take as a transferable skill and bring to our company, right? What are you going to be bringing to this role? So you want to ask yourself these things before the interviewer or the hiring manager, recruiter, before they ask you. Because when we see a position that we're interested in, we're kind of going through a mental checklist as we're looking at it, and we're saying, okay, I fit that thing, or I have experience in that, right? And so that's the reason we're kind of applying in the first place. It then becomes our job to articulate why we want to work for them so that they know. So we kind of finish the puzzle pieces for them, so to speak. So why do you want to work for them? Why this industry? Why the organization? And that's when it goes back to doing some of that research, hearing a little bit more about the mission and values of the company and why that might be of interest to you. Does that personally align with you? Right? So these are things that you want to consider when you're doing some of that research, because employers are going to want to know that. And again, the more prepared you come across, the more of a applicant that to be considered is going to be, narrowed in on you as being someone who's taking this opportunity really seriously. What are your goals? How does this opportunity help you get closer to those goals? What are you going to be like as a coworker? I hear all the time now companies are looking for someone, who fits in with the company, right? Who's going to be fitting into whatever company culture, which is a little bit of a buzzword, right? You hear a lot of those questions. What is the office culture like? Or what is the company culture like? But people are going to ask you things like, how would your friends describe you? How would former teammates describe you? Classmates, professors, right? Former bosses. So you want to think about all of these things because employers are going to want to know that. I love the question at the bottom. How would a former or current supervisor or coworker describe you, right? So how do others speak about you, right? So you want to practice some of these things. Now, best practices for in person. So attire, what to bring, um, your arrival and greeting. You're gonna have kind of a 30-second intro, and then you want to know how to follow up. Okay, so first and foremost, let's talk about the best practices for uh, in-person attire. Okay, so there's a lot of different options. It's kind of gone by the wayside. We don't have to go full suit, full pantsuits, anything like that anymore. You certainly can if you'd like, but I would say that definitely this kind of business casual approach is more than fine. Okay. We have a note here. Be sure to consider the weather. I know the weather has been a little bit all over the place. Let's be glad the career fairs weren't a couple weeks ago when there was several inches of snow on the ground, which definitely would have been quite cold as you were coming over if you were in person. Obviously, this doesn't have an impact on you. We're talking about in-person fairs and not the virtual. Um, you want to make sure that you're, planning this stuff out accordingly. Wear something that you feel good in, something that you feel confident in. Also, when you're coming in person, you're going to want to make sure that you're bringing that pen card for check-in. I mentioned that earlier because you're going to tap your card to be able to check in for the event. You want to bring multiple copies of your resumes or of your resume. I would actually say to have more than you anticipate even speaking to employers. You never know what's going to happen. Maybe there's more than one person at the table that you're speaking to. Always good to have more than not. Want to have pen and pencil to take some notes, notepad or portfolio. You don't want to carry too much, right? But you want to make sure you have a couple of these essential things. You don't want to bring extra essentials. Bringing some water would be good, but you don't want to be carrying around food or other beverages or large backpacks, shoulder bags that you're bumping in. I mean, for those of you who have attended a fair before, it can be quite busy, whether it be in line or maneuvering around the room a little bit. So you don't want to have a phone that's potentially going off. So make sure you silence your phone, right? No distractions when you're speaking to the employers and kind of moving about the room and having that conversation with them. We want to bring our best selves. Um, and then also items. This sounds kind of silly, but it might not be something you think about. Don't want to have items with another organization's logo, right? If you're standing at a competitor and you have a logo on a water bottle on the back of your laptop or a portfolio or something like that and has another organization's logo, we just want to be conscious about those things. And also, including your t-shirt, right? Think about what you're wearing, unless you're trying to make a real impression, right, for one specific employer. Now, best practices for like the arrival and greeting. So smile, kind of read the room about shaking hands. Some people are going to be comfortable with this, others may not, and that's okay. Your 30-second spot. So these 4 bullet points, you want to be able to practice. I'm serious. Say it in front of the mirror. Say it to a friend. Say it to your roommate. Say it to a classmate. Call somebody on the phone that you haven't spoken to a while. Like, hey, can I practice something with you real quick? You want to say who you are, what related experience you have to the role, the positions and the company, and then convey that interest and enthusiasm. Again, it's okay to come across excited. Nothing crazy over the top, but it's all right to be enthusiastic about having a conversation or wanting to learn more. And then you want to follow up with an immediate question. An example question. What are some qualities of previous interns, employees that stand out in your mind, right? That's just as an example. But you want to prepare this stuff ahead of time so that when you're on the spot, you're not trying to rack your brain for something that sounds compelling. So think of a couple of different questions, and then depending on how your conversation is going, choose one of the questions after your intro with what feels right. Now, the follow up is going to be really important as well. So you want to be able to recap what you've learned. You want to reiterate that interest and intention of taking next steps. So what does that look like? So maybe that means, yep, I really appreciate you taking the time to explain this role. I'm super excited. I'll be sure to fill out that application online and send you that email to let you know that I've applied, right? Maybe that's part of your conversation where you've included those steps along the way. So you want to make sure that you're saying it out loud to them. I plan on taking these next steps. I heard what you're saying. Thank you so much for sharing that. Maybe it's connecting on LinkedIn. You want to ask about that best way to stay in contact throughout the process. If you can continue to stay in contact with the point person for that role or for other opportunities, whether that be via email, LinkedIn are probably going to be the top 2 most common ways. That's when you're going to be able to hopefully shift your application a little bit more forward, right, into a yes pile. So ask about the best way to stay connected so that you can inform them when you've applied or when you're looking for other opportunities. Also, when possible, I always recommend sending a thank you note as well. So thank you notes can go a long way, especially because these employers are meeting with so many different students throughout the day in person. It's a lot for them. You should see them at the end. They have stacks of resume, and people are like, well, how am I ever going to stand out from that? And I know that it can be difficult, but sending a thank you note or having that as part of your follow up is one way that you can do that. Another great reason to try to either find them on LinkedIn or have an email address, ask for a business card. A lot of them might have that as well, so that you can do some of that follow up. I would say I would recommend following up sometime either later in that evening or the next morning after the fair. So specific to virtual fairs now, you want to practice all this technical stuff ahead of time so that you can eliminate the possibility of as many tech issues as possible when you're in interview or in the group info session. So make sure you're joining with a preferred browser. Chrome and Firefox are kind of the recommended ones. You don't want to use Safari. Have a link to your resume ready for one-on-one meetings so that you can quickly send it over. Or if you have it downloaded and you're able to shoot it over in a quick email, right? Either way, you want to make sure that you have access to it so that if you're asked for it when they're reviewing it, you don't have to go digging for it. So either have it pulled up in a tab so you're able to screen share a link to a PDF to send it would be probably best. So you're going to just end up asking what their preferred method is. And then again, you want to be aware of sound settings when you're joining a meeting. What's your camera look like? Is your background clear? Do you have a blurred background? These are all things you want to think about. You want to mute for those group sessions. And then obviously you're going to be unmuting for the one-on-one conversations as well. So if your schedule does need to change, right? And it does happen for the fairs, we do want to just remember you can cancel one-on-ones up to 10 minutes before. This is to allow other people to possibly take slots. So be considerate of that. You can join the group sessions at any time. They are actually open and in the session. But if you're going to be canceling a session for any reason, just make sure that you're reaching out to kind of just keep those lines of communication open. We want to be professional, of course, as we're going, through the fair here. And so that again is specific to the virtual fair. And with that being said, I'm going to say thank you so much.